I'm Mike Dow,
And I'm Mike Nimocks.
and this is
Mike's
Mike's
on
on
Mics.
Mics.
Mike's on Mics. Yeah.
So, who are we talking to today?
We're going to talk to a guy that I knew in junior high. I'm going to say around 8th grade. I knew him as Chaz. He goes by Nathan now. But I tell you what, let's figure out what the deal is with that right now.
Oh,
I got to leave now. All right. First thing I need to get out of the way. Growing up, I knew you as Chaz. I know your name's Nathan.
yes.
What is the Chaz all about? Because I may accidentally call you that, and if that's some pet peeve, I apologize.
Not a pet peeve at all. It's my middle name. It's just an abbreviation for Charles. And so what happened was I started switching schools a lot. I moved when I was younger. And so I just hit a new school. It's like, I'm going to change my name, try to just start fresh kind of thing. Started going by Chaz.
Understood. Okay, that's cool. This is Mike Dow.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Like right off the bat, is that an Emax II back there?
Yes, it is. Good eye.
Yeah, I have one.
I love it.
Mike and I know each other. We went to the same church in Bedford growing up, and he's a year behind us in school, but he did go to Bell High School.
Okay.
So just a little context there. I don't know. Did you go to Trinity or did you move?
I went to Bell and then I moved. So yeah.
Oh, you went to Bell and then you moved.
Yep.
Okay.
I left Bell in 10th grade.
Got it. Because when did you arrive at Central? 8th grade?
8th grade. Yep.
Okay. My memory is of you kind of being a part of my life was when you were living with Bryan Mitchell.
Yes.
So, and then you were the one who figured out how to program this PV DPM sequencer that he had.
Oh yeah. What was that? PVDP. Yeah.
DPM3.
DPM3. Yeah. That was fun. Actually, I played my wife that song recently. I saw it on your SoundCloud.
Yeah. One of the original song that he did on there. But like Bryan was saying, Mike Dow and Bryan were on. We were just kind of chatting earlier. Bryan had mentioned the story, and then I totally forgot about it. He said the first thing that you programmed was you remade Enjoy the Silence, and I was like, yes, I remember that.
Yep. I do. I remember that as well.
So that was cool.
I think that's kind of a rite of passage is if you have access to a sequencer and modules of some kind, and you realize you can sort of multi-track, one of the first things you do is like, oh, let me copy what somebody else has done so I can go through the motions of how it's done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's where I got my engineering mindset, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I remember mine was not as electronic. It was definitely You Can Call Me Al by Paul Simon.
I remember you were the guy who, quote, didn't have a lot of formal music training, but you could hear a song and you sat at the piano and ripped it out.
Yep.
So walk me through that. When did you first get musically inclined or care?
Funny. I can really remember, let's see. Well, my parents had a large record collection, and I can remember I would listen to the records, and I started one record that fascinates me still, ZZ Top Tejas. It's this beautiful gatefold album, and I used to just listen to it, and I think it was the first album I ever said, like, how did they put that here? And how do they make this? And how do they blend that together? And things are going left and right. And it's like, I really there's this song called, I think it's called Asleep in the Desert. And I just felt like, man, this really makes me feel like asleep in the desert. And it was just fascinating. And so that's when I picked up on music and started tinkering, asked my parents for a guitar. But what really opened the door was they bought a Sequential Circuits synthesizer in like 1983. And that's when it happened. So
wait, whose parents did that?
I know.
That's
I was
insane.
lucky. I wasn't allowed to. I actually have that synthesizer right here in front of me. I wasn't allowed to touch it. Right. So I kept erasing patches, that kind of thing. And so my dad started taking out the fuse out of the back of the keyboard, and he would hide it. And as a kid, I figured out everywhere he hid stuff, and used to keep the fuse on top of his closet on the inside of the baseboard, or whatever you'd call it, the casing of the door. And so I was able to get that, and then I could. He eventually started hiding the fuse holder as well. So I learned I could take foil and wrap it around the fuse, cram it in the back of the synthesizer, and it would turn on and play. So that's how it all started.
So your dad bought it for himself?
They bought it for themselves. Yeah. I should have clarified. Yeah, definitely for themselves. And I was not allowed to touch. It was like only when they were there supervising, kind of thing.
So what is that? Like a Prophet VS or
it's a 6 oscillator. It has a unison mode, so you can turn it on to unison mode and make it into like a really fat, beefy synth. But it was probably a middle of the road sequential circuits. It wasn't as good as like a Prophet. But everyone loves them, to this day. They're still very sentimental to a lot of people.
That's amazing. That's crazy. And you have it, clearly. Yeah.
Oh.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Does that have wood on the ends?
It does. And I've actually redone that wood like 3 times in my life. Just, scratches and stuff.
And that's the one that's the exact one
that's the very same one, literally the one.
The fire hazard your dad created that he didn't know about.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
and then
at least we know you know how to change the fuse.
I do. And I'm sorry, I'm over here with my mute button. I learned a lot. That's where the sequencer on this was horrible though. And that was the one thing I didn't really get into until later on, like around the time I met you guys. It had a really archaic sequencer, no quantization, no anything. And you could just do 6 measly little tracks and kind of a demo.
Bryan said he remembered you getting a K2000. Is that correct?
A K2000? Yeah, I have several in here. I have a Kurzweil K2500 in this flight case you can't see. I have a K2500 XS over here, K2661 up on top.
Wow.
Those guys. And then
nice.
Keyboards all over the place. They're here, they're back there. They're just, scattered.
Living the dream.
Yeah. The big K2500 on the rack that I showed you, that was actually Mel Tillis's keyboard. The great country legend, Mel Tillis. And when he passed away, and his band director, a guy named Dennis Pratt, had 2 of the K2500s. They're fully loaded hard drives. The sticker was in the manual for this book when he bought it. $12,000 is what he spent on it.
Wow.
Back in 1996. So that's even more, obviously. But so he was very generous, kind, sent it to me, sent me all of his books, all of his discs, let me keep all of his sounds. It was pretty neat. Pretty nice guy.
Mel Tillis. That's insane.
Yep. Mel Tillis. And Dennis Pratt is like a Kurzweil. He's like an authorized Kurzweil artist. When you go look up, here's Herbie Hancock, here's so-and-so, here's Dennis Pratt. It was pretty neat. And it just happened by chance. I just happened to reach out to him. I had no clue who he was. And there you go.
So I read through the manuals because I have a K2000 also. And they're pretty dense and there's a lot. But yes. Recently, I didn't know that they produced a VHS tape, or maybe a series of tapes. And I just watched a full 2-hour transfer on YouTube of it. And I was like, I had no idea it could do some of these things.
Is it the one with Jordan Rudess?
I've slept since then, so okay. I don't know.
Long-haired guy doing lots of...
They had lots of people, but they were from Kurzweil, right? There was a lady in there who seemed to know what she was talking about, but it was sort of like, this is your Kurzweil, and lots of '90s DVE effects, that are really outdated today.
Wow, yeah. They had a famous VHS that used to come with the K2500, and it's got Jordan Rudess, who at the time, I just thought he was like a really good synth guy. I had no idea he was Dream Theater, that kind of deal. And yeah, those videos, I've got them somewhere, but they're pretty legendary. They're cool to watch, sit down and listen to. And
Yeah, I think the thing that I learned was evidently you could insert an effect into it, like the non-sampler version. Like if you had an effects processor, if you used an insert cable, it'd actually come out and then
Absolutely.
back in. And I was like, what?
Yep.
I could have been doing this whole time?
I think it's the only synth I have that does that, and I've never used that function really. Looking back, I might have tested it, but yeah, you can use an insert cable, patch them in, and use the internal. Which I think the internal effects were, I want to say they're Digitech or somebody, but yeah, there's like 100 standard.
It was kind of revolutionary. Like all the other keyboards I knew at the time, it was like, oh yeah, it's really cool. It can do all these things, and this floppy disk is proprietary, and you'll never put it in any computer that understands anything.
Right.
And then K2000 was like, all right, yeah, you just throw this in a PC, MIDI files back and forth.
Absolutely. That's what I love about it. You can plug up a Kurzweil with a SCSI cable to a computer, and it sees it as a device. It goes through this weird process where it has to ask you to confirm it like 7 times. But once you do that, it's there. You can start sending samples. It is incredible. It just blew the doors open for me.
Sorry, the mic's on mics. One of the mics fell down my shirt. So yeah.
Wants to be there.
Yeah.
Went ride.
Yeah, I was using medical tape because I thought, oh, I'm a film guy. I know what I'm doing. It turns out I don't know what I'm doing. So
Hey, it looks and sounds great over here.
we'll just keep it just out of camera shot.
So
How about that?
So after the sequential circuits thing, did you take any kind of formal piano lesson or any stuff like that?
I did actually. I took piano for I don't remember how long. It was long enough to realize that it was hard for me to learn the way the lady tried to teach me. I remember that, and we struggled through it, and I retained a lot of it, I think, but I didn't take any formal training after that. So that was maybe a year, I would say, maybe 5th to 6th grade, something like that.
Was that Suzuki?
I don't know.
Do you remember? Okay. No, because Mike and we took Suzuki from the same piano teacher in Hearst, which we found out, which was funny.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see. No, it was when I was in Kingwood, a little suburb of Houston. So yeah, but it was a short time, and I think she told my parents that I had no hope. Something like that.
Right.
Dad's like, well, not to spend that money.
Yeah. Yep.
That's pretty good. What was the first piece of gear that you bought?
First piece of gear I bought. Well, actually, I bought the Emax II was the first thing I bought, and then the sequencer on it is also kind of archaic. No quantization. It was made as a little scratch pad. So I took it back and I got a Korg 01W FD because it had a really nice sequencer, and I've still got that. That's on the floor over here behind me. But I bought it, kept it for a year, worked all through the summer, saved up money, went back and got the Emax II. So that was my first rig of my own. Was I would use the Korg 01W FD as my brain and the sequencer, and I would trigger samples from the Emax, stuff like that.
Have you ever used like an external sequencer, like the Roland MC50 or MC300 or anything like that?
I never used the Roland stuff. I used an Alesis, what was it, the MMT8s?
Yeah.
I used to use one of those a little bit, tinker with it, and I had a friend who had the HR16 drum machine, which was awesome. So that was my only foray into that. But yeah, Alesis MMT8, which I think is still a really legendary sequencer. A lot of guys really still use it.
It's weird. I didn't think of it at the time because I was much younger, and but I just happened to have like an old sequencer or an MC300, and it's to this day so much different. I remember thinking, oh, I got to get rid of this thing. I got to get on a computer or something like that, because I'd used the K2000's sequencer and the Emax II's sequencer, and I just was like, oh, these are awful, because the first one I used was an MC300, and then I got on a computer and I was like, okay, great, this is everything I ever wanted. But pulling out that MC300 nowadays, it's so intuitive for me, but it it just works, and everything is where you need it to be. And so you can still be switched into the creative gear in your mind and not have to go out to engineering. Because when I swap back and forth between those things, it kills my creative children.
Right.
Is that something that you find, is that certain sequencers can keep you in the moment, whereas
Absolutely.
other ones...
Like as far as, well, sequencer wise, ever since I could start tracking to a computer, I've pretty much been on a computer, but that workflow that you mentioned, definitely, like the Emax. That's why I love the Emax, because I can sit down and I can just blast through it so fast. Even compared to a Kurzweil, which is set up for a lot of, big sampling and digital transfers, the Emax, just the workflow is so easy. Just bam, 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 bam. And I've got a full bank of keys, and I love that.
The Kurzweil is cool, but the menus run deep.
They do run deep, and it's a never ending, I maybe use a third of that synthesizer's power, and it's it's incredible, but it's a never ending learning process for sure.
100%.
So when did you switch to software sequencers, and what was that?
Early on, my mom was, she had computers. And so early on, I was already looking at that stuff. I used to get magazines, and they would talk about like Turtle Beach and all these interfaces you could buy. So I had Cubase before it was VST or whatever, it was called in the mid 90s, but that was my
It's
first.
just called Cubase.
Yeah. I think I might've had the first computer I bought for myself. I think I put Cubase, the first version of VST, on it, actually, that I can remember. I used some other stuff that I tinkered with, opcode for a little bit, Studio Vision, stuff like that. But Cubase was the first one I really delved into.
And was it a PC?
Yes,
or was
PC,
it a Mac?
PC. And over the years,
Sorry, Mike.
Well, no, mine was a PC the first time too.
Oh, was it? He's our resident Mac guy.
Oh, okay, okay.
I think the first version of VST was like only available on Mac,
right?
Which was awful, because I was like, I have a PC and I want this so bad, and it's finally I have something that is going to be kind of like Pro Tools but cooler, because I understand it.
Right. And I think even I can still remember when you couldn't track the audio to the computer. You could track MIDI, and it was like, wow, and I was blown away sitting down, opening up VST, and it's like, I can do MIDI, I can do audio right underneath it. I've got these plugins, which now everybody takes those for granted, but.
Oh yeah. And then they're like, oh, and here's a virtual instrument,
Right.
Because at first, I don't remember them having that. I think it was just audio with like, here's a reverb, here's a delay, here's some compression,
right,
and some EQ, and you're like, I gotta automate all that. And then they're like, oh, by the way, here's some built-in stuff. Like, I think the first built-in was not them. I used a propeller head. I forgot what it was called. What was that called, Mike?
Reason? Or the, Rebirth.
Rebirth.
Yeah, Rebirth.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it was, yeah.
Had the little TR-303s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
I have a box of that somewhere outside, the original box. I bought it for $700.
Yeah. My friend and I, because
I think now you can just download it.
You can download it for free.
Well, it's on your iPhone. You got one on your iPhone. But yeah, my friend and I, we were like, $700. That's a lot of money. But I have $350, and you have $350, and I have a CD burner, and that's all it took to activate it was the CD. So if you copied the CD, you had Rebirth.
Yeah, you guys were delving into piracy.
I know. I mean,
Yar.
I'm just,
it happens. That's actually what opened the door fully wide open for me. I hate to admit it, but in the 90s, I wasn't doing the pirating, but I was involved heavily with people that were doing the pirating. I was a moderator in a lot of the big channels back then. We had famous guys that used to come in those channels, like, I don't want to name names, but people would come in there. And so that's really what kicked it into me being just, well-versed in the software and everything.
If any of those famous people are dead, you can mention them.
There's no one that's dead. They're all active still. But we did have guys come in there, some famous guys. We even had a guy that was in there that we used to tease him because he was like, I'm going to start a band. I'm going to do this. And I don't want to say the band, but they blew up. They became a worldwide famous band and no one likes them anymore, but they were kind of hokey, but, it was pretty crazy. And so I was right on the tip of the spear when it came to what's legal and what's not legal with software. And hey, here's this copy of Cubase. Here's this plugin and you know.
Nice.
I don't think anybody was alone in that.
No.
In fact, you could probably make an argument not to say that it's legal. Certainly don't do it today, but you can probably make an argument that Adobe would not be as big as they are and have such a huge user base of just give me all the Adobe.
Absolutely.
If that wasn't a thing.
Absolutely.
We bought all we could and stole the rest.
Right.
But we would have actually most of the stuff that I got was you would find just plugins.
Right.
You know, they were just obnoxiously expensive, and if I had the money, I would have bought them. But it's a weird market because your market is starving artists,
right?
Yeah, you're charging out the wazoo. Anyways,
yep. That's exactly, and that's what I think spawned a lot of that spirit of like F you, we're gonna do it, and
did my thing freeze?
Yeah,
you froze, man.
You froze again.
You can hear me.
We can hear you.
You guys remember Radium?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Radium. I was pretty close to those guys and back in those days. And so the channel I was a moderator in was the official dump site that they used. So that's how I got into what I do. Actually, I don't think I would be where I am without that. It's crazy.
Yeah. What kind of hardware? Was it like a Pentium or?
Oh, it was I remember it was a Pentium with MMX technology. It was just a Pentium with MMX. Yeah. It was a 133 megahertz. I had a Sony Trinitron monitor. I spent $1,000 on that thing. I remember, like, I couldn't believe it. I went to get the computer and my mom went with me at the time and it was like, you need this, you need that. And I was buying all these peripherals. The next thing you know, it's $4,000 but yeah, a measly 133 megahertz.
I mean,
with 16 megs of RAM.
16 and as far as I can't remember my first audio card was the MIDI Man. It wasn't the Delta 66 or the 44 or anything like that. It was earlier. It was a 2044 or something like that, and it actually had a little. You plugged it in, and it had a bunch of hanging off cables. It wasn't like an interface nice and tidy. It was really like snakish.
Yeah.
MPU 401.
MPU 4. What was that?
MPU 401.
That sounds
That was
right.
the MIDI peripheral interface.
Oh, okay. I think I had a Mark of the Unicorn was my first MIDI interface of some sort. PC Flyer. I can't remember what they were.
Motu. Yeah.
Motu. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a Mark of the Unicorn AV timepiece. Like,
okay,
when we first decided to do an album, we said, we need 8 in, we need 8 out, and we need time code.
Right.
Don't know why. Don't know why we needed time code.
Hey,
but
I remember that. That was a nice piece of gear. That was hefty.
And to this day, if you need linear time code to go to MIDI time code or back, I can turn it on. It still works. Now, can I connect it to a computer? No.
Right.
Those parallel ports don't exist.
Right.
And there's no drivers. Oh, I know why we needed it. It's because ADATs. Did you ever use ADATs for tracking?
Absolutely.
It would control and chase ADATs. And so that's
cool.
That's
sync
what
it up with Synth or with whatever. Yeah.
Their proprietary 9-pin thing or something. And,
gotcha.
And then when you hit play on the ADAT, it would start chasing. I remember that. And then we got rid of that because we wanted to be able to hit play on the computer, and then have the computer actually tell the ADATs to kick in. And
yeah, it's like it was crazy trying to get all that stuff working back then. Still crazy, actually.
Looks like we lost Nimocks for a second. I got my phone right here. This is awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you and I did some of the same stuff just by ear, both in piano lessons and about the point when they were like, okay, now you need to start reading music instead of just doing it by ear. I was like, nah, I'm out.
Right.
I just want to play the stuff I hear.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it was for me. Like, my grandmother, she's incredible. She's passed away since, but she actually played at the church. She had a Hammond B3 organ in her living room. And I was actually
get to play that?
I used to. It was actually given to me right before I moved down here to Austin. I just had nowhere to take it, and I lived in an apartment. I gave it to a church. So, yeah, it kills me. I thought about that as recently as a month ago, and that's been 16 or 17 years, and it's like, But
I feel your pain. I had to move to the Middle East for a second, and I could not take my baby grand piano with me.
Oh, wow.
So I gave it I gave it to a friend for a song, basically.
Did they ever give it back?
So, no.
No.
But, yeah, I came back and I said, hey, do you like having that big thing in your place? And he was like, you can have it back. We want a smaller one. So I'll make you a deal. If you find me, there's, gotta admit, Michael Nimocks. Here we go. See if this works. I'll finish my story as soon as he comes back in.
Sure.
And there he is, and motion video, everything. So we were just talking about stuff without you, about he had a B3 that he gave away, and I have the piano that I gave away, and he asked if they ever gave it back, and the stipulation was if I could find them an upright, if I'd buy them the upright, he'd give me back the old piano. But I was like, man, that sounds like a lot of work. I'm doing a lot of other things. And then my best friend's parents passed away, and they had a grand piano, which are kind of like white elephants, right? I mean, these things are great until you have to have a space for them. And one day I just showed up at my house, and there was a baby grand in my living room, and he was like, you can keep it forever. We don't play, and we just figured you needed it. So,
wow. Fantastic.
Wow.
That's cool. I want to ask you more about some gear real quick.
Sure.
Like what was the last piece of gear you bought?
I've been buying up those little Korg micro synths, I got a wave state right here. I have a Op 6 over here behind me. That's the last thing I bought right here.
Do any of those have like the little vocoder stuff built in, or am I way off base?
Not on these. The wave state is kind of like the old Korg wave station, I guess it was, that was pretty popular and legendary. And the Op 6 over here it's Korg's take on the Yamaha DX7. Those were, they've come back in style, but they were notoriously hard to program. And so a lot of the sounds you would hear were just very generic, the 80s stuff you heard everywhere. But right. This allows you to easily really get down into the operators and make some cool stuff.
So is that also an FM synthesis?
It's totally FM. It's okay. Pretty much I wouldn't say they ripped off the DX7, but the DX7 had like 6 operators, and so that's why they call this the Op 6. It just puts it all in your hands, a lot easier to control. And on top of that, these Korgs have a little button that has a picture of a dice. It's a randomizer button. You just click the button, it makes a whole new sound. It's awesome.
That's cool.
So
nice.
Yeah, so you can sit there all day. I've actually frozen them up just, doing that so much.
That's great.
That's the most recent stuff I bought.
Okay. Is there anything you ever got rid of that you wish you had?
I've never sold a synth. I've got all of the synths.
I was about to say, if you have that sequential circuits and all the other stuff we've been talking about, you probably never got rid of anything.
I don't. I have a lot of stuff. I even have stuff that's not set up in here. But no, I don't have anything that I just miss. I have a few things that maybe broke that I kind of wish didn't break, but nothing outrageous, just cheapy pieces of gear.
Bryan and I sold some stuff. It wasn't rent money. It was to buy something else. But there's a couple pieces that I wish we still had. I had an ARP Odyssey.
Oh, wow.
Which was in great shape. And it even, it was the orange one. I know they came in different flavors. I don't really remember what it is, the one with the little rubber kind of modulation pads.
Yeah.
And then I had an OBMX Oberheim, which was
wow.
physically huge. I mean, it was probably 18 inches deep and probably had 4 octaves at least. And it was probably 4.5 feet wide. I mean, it took up a whole table.
Right.
But that thing was so fat. It just made the coolest. It was classic Oberheim, and I couldn't afford a modular. So, but that was there. And Bryan had he had a Sequential Circuits. I don't remember what it was. It was black plastic. It was about 3 octaves with a bunch of knobs on top. And it wasn't a profit line. It was something, and he got rid of that, but that thing was awesome. The downside of that was the plug was integrated. Other than that, good times.
Have you seen the prices of those Oberheims these days?
They're more than I paid like $800, $900 for that thing in
they're thousands.
The mid 90s.
Right.
I'm just going, what? Yeah, I dream of finding stuff that I actually owned.
Right.
I wouldn't know how to know that, but
there was a sweet spot in the late 90s where you could still look up like used equipment for sale at like a Craigslist or a but now everyone's hip to that. So they
were on forums.
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, got married, moved into an apartment, want to get rid of this. I don't play this anymore. And we went through a huge acquiring phase. And one of those deals was it came out shortly after the web started getting big. I don't remember the name of it exactly, but it was like the vintage synthesizer page.
Oh yeah.
And it had all the makes, models, and like street price.
Vintage Synth Explorer.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's it. You can look up everything. Yeah, you can just go there and
Yeah, and then you're like, I gotta stop. So that's cool. Let's move on to I know you were in the several music projects with other people. What was your first kind of band that you got involved with?
Oh gosh. Funny enough, my band that I'm still releasing music under, the Holocaust Humanity, was the first real band I ever played in. But I played with other people, just like jamming in the garage kind of thing, growing up, doing like Van Halen covers and stuff like that. And then
EX7.
Yeah. So I would say though, probably my band was the very first. I never had any other bands I experimented with before mine. I started sequencing, and I was already like a studio rat by the time I was 19 years old. I was already just at home. All my friends were going out and getting in trouble, and I was at home sequencing, and you know how that goes. Both of you guys know how that goes.
We had that exact conversation. It was greatness.
Yeah. So I did a lot of that. And then in my mid-20s, I hit the stage, people started saying, you should try to do this like somewhere, go play this for people. And
I remember 10 years ago, you would post to YouTube, it's like, here, I'm playing Rachmaninoff or Chopin or something. And you'd rip through some big piano piece live. And I'm just going, wow.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. That's, like I was telling him, my grandmother, she taught me a lot of piano as well. And she played for the church. And so when she passed away, it was 2010. And one of the last things I did with her was I went to where she was staying in downtown Fort Worth at a really nice place called Trinity. And she played the piano for everybody in the building. She had me come down and sit. I sat next to her and she just played the piano. And she said, promise me that, you will start playing this again, and she pulled out a bunch of the music from under the bench and handed it to me. And so I said, I will. And she passed away like later that year. And I buckled down and started playing Chopin and the Rachmaninoff stuff. And, you know, maybe 15 or 20 that I posted that you've seen or that you saw a couple of. And
Yeah, no, they're amazing.
thank you.
So
it's hard. It crippled me, I feel like.
Well, the beauty is it's recorded.
Yes, I had one and done.
No, that was cool. It would be here's my fuel calculation for a flight from Chicago to France, and then the next video would be Rachmaninoff, and I'm going, what's going on here, dude?
That's it. That's my interest: music, airplanes, and then classical piano.
That's greatness.
I consider myself keyboard player, piano player, and not much else, but other people around me would say, oh, no, you play guitar and you play mandolin and you play, and I do. I pick them up and I have recorded them before.
Sure.
And drums, are you just strictly keyboards, or are there other instruments?
It's other instruments. I never played guitar like a true guitarist. I can cheat and detune and get the job done. But funny, you know, I forgot, but now that you mentioned drums, I actually was most serious on the drums first. Like I was forbidden to play the sequential circuits. So I asked for a guitar. They got me a really cool, like not a flying V, but the Z shape, like ZZ Top style guitar. And I broke that at some point. And then I remember I got a drum set, and that's when I really started, you know, I learned rhythm from drums. I learned how to play, like, I think that helps me with click tracks and those, you know, so drums and synths.
Nothing cripples a guitarist more than a click track.
Really? Wow.
That's my own personal experience. Like, oh, okay, guys, you all ready?
Because they want to lead.
That too.
What is this in my? It's wrong, Mike. There's no way that's the right time.
Well, yeah, and click tracks reveal the drummers that, like, there's two types of drummers as well. You'll find that out as well. Like when you do that, it's like some guys, they're great drummers, but they flow and they just can't stay to that click, and it separates the, you know, the two really quickly.
And there's that particular process of production that I went through where, well, the computer's always right and the click track's always right, and so always stay on the click track, right? And then later in my career, it was like, well, if you like feeling,
sure,
and they're good enough and they're tight together, maybe you don't need a click track.
I agree.
Ableton Live.
It took me a minute to figure that one out, but
absolutely. You got to, you know, it's easy. It's easy to start approaching music as more mathematical, and you've got to go back and, you know, get it a little bit more linear again, I guess is the right way to say it. But
yeah. So Holocaust Humanity, I know you've got stuff on Spotify. When we chatted a little bit and I listened to that, it's right into that kind of 90s skinny puppy 9 Inch Nails era, at least what I listened to. Right. When was the last time you guys actually recorded something?
I record for Holocaust Humanity all the time. I recorded last week. I just don't release a lot of it, but I put up the first album we ever wrote and never released. I just put that up on October 13th. So it's on Spotify now. Doing 2 singles that are dropping on November 4th. And I have 190 songs scattered around for like everything that I've written for all my projects. And not all of them are great, but.
Well, I saw your post where you said, "Hey, I'm about to drop a ton of
dropping a bunch." Yeah.
And I've listened to the solo stuff. You got a couple albums out there on the solo stuff, but the music for 15 emails, is that you?
Music for which one?
Music for 15 emails? No,
that's not me. That's another Nathan Hewitt.
Oh, wow. Okay. Because I was going to ask you about that. I was like, I didn't know you were doing stuff like this.
No, that's not me. I've seen that profile though.
Wow. Okay. You just kind of blew away some questions I was going to ask you.
Oh, gosh.
I was going to ask you about some of that. I was like, okay.
This doesn't sound like something he would do.
So is that posted on Spotify? And if so, under what?
There is a funny you mentioned that. Just like a day ago, Spotify created a new artist profile for me. So there's going to be one release under it called Molecular, and that's me,
Well,
Nathan.
Oh, wait. But is it Nathan Hewitt?
It's Nathan Hewitt. Yeah. So I've got
which that other guy was.
Yeah, but not me. There's probably 1,000 of those guys.
I see it. Molecular.
That's me. Yeah. That one's brand new. That just released 2 days ago.
Gotcha.
Actually released yesterday. The problem is all of these, like you said, there's hundreds of Nathan Hewitts, hundreds of Mike Nimocks probably. And
no, there's only one of me.
Okay. Well, there's so yeah, you kind of have to get your release into the pipeline, and then once it's on Spotify, you have to go claim it and all that. And so I went ahead and claimed this profile, and anything I release from here on out is going to that one that you can see. So
okay, so I got Molecular 1 and Molecular 2.
That's the only stuff under my name that I have released anywhere. Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Everything else is under the Holocaust Humanity or other bands I've worked with, or maybe albums I've helped produce for people.
Gotcha.
That's it.
So of all the stuff you've recorded, I know from my own personal experience, there's certain songs that I was like, that was fun at the time, but no thanks anymore. Are there standout songs that even to this day, when you play back or hear back, you're like, man, that was good. I like that. I still like it.
Sure. Those are the rarest though. I can think of one from the first album we did. It's a song called Leaves, like leaves of a tree. And I love that one. And people love that song. You know, I hate most of the music I write, like honestly, and especially when I look back at stuff, you know, in the industrial type genre, it's always angry and disgruntled, and which goes really good with your mid-20s, I guess, or your teen angst. But I look back at that stuff and I cringe at it, and I'm proud of it, but I cringe. And,
I mean, it was good at the time, you know.
Yeah. And
it fit in. It was appropriate.
Exactly. And so I'm always striving to write a better song. And I think the stuff I'm writing now is it's the closest to real music, you know, that I've ever written. I've always been like off the beaten track for sure. I knew the minute I chose the band name I did that I would never get airplay on the radio, which, right. You know, funny enough, I ended up winning a big battle of the bands once. I couldn't believe it. Beat out another band I'm not going to mention, but so I was very shocked. I'm proud of that song too. It's a song called Panic that I wrote. And yeah, those are the two that stand out to me of the hundreds.
It's pretty cool to win a battle of the bands. I'm lucky enough to have done that with the band I was in.
Yeah,
it's pretty neat.
It was unexpected.
So the back to Leaves, and then I'll leave you out of, or we can leave that part of it.
Is that a joke?
A little bit. I do that on accident a lot.
That's perfect.
So what about it? Is there like and I'll give you an example of one of the songs I recorded 20 years ago. I found it and I played it back, and then there's like I remember producing a bass line, like a riff, and I remember going, that's great. I'm so glad that I got that across to the bassist and I was able to record it and we were able to put it in there, and it's so cool. Is there something in Leaves, or is it just an overall, it's a good song and you just like it, or are there pieces that you're like, I really enjoyed that I did this and it worked out?
That's a fantastic question. That song, I think, is the first song that, okay, so you guys know how the Skinny Puppies and the Nine Inch Nails are out there. Everybody hides behind distortion and, you know, and that album has a lot of distortion and stuff too. But the Leaves song, it was the first song where I had crystal clear vocals, and I was learning. I was still at a phase, I think, at that point where I didn't have my own style, and so I would hide a lot behind effects. And I think Leaves was the first song where I wasn't hiding behind the effects. It was my normal voice, and I was learning that, like, I was learning how to sing over the break, so to speak. Like when you can start to get powerful with your singing and keep it the same power all through those ranges. And I think I was proud of it for that reason, because I realized I can do more than just scream on a microphone. I can do more than just bathe it in distorted vocals. And
it sounds like a moment where you like that moment where you're like, oh,
absolutely,
like, I can love myself.
that's exactly what I realized. I can write a real song. It doesn't even have to be the same genre. It can be something. And that was when I realized, okay. And then people would say, like a lot of people throw comparisons out, but I never got compared after I did that. After I started singing on my own, no one has ever come and said, oh, you sound, they may say, whatever. My dad will say, it sounds a little like Jim Morrison or somebody, or Iggy Pop, but it's got its own unique thing. And that's why I really love that record and that song. It just broke me out of the mold.
Yeah, you just kind of confirmed. I would normally do that, saying, oh, this is very artist specific, but I put you into a time period.
Right.
And I wasn't saying you sounded like Skinny Puppy or Nine Inch Nails, but I could see that particular stuff that I listened to, that, oh, this must have been released around 93, 94.
Of course. I hear you. You can date it by exactly. It's got that edge to it, so to speak. And music
very cool.
Yeah.
So I think you should also take the recordings of all that classical stuff and just release it on its own little thing.
That's a good idea. I put one up on SoundCloud and they gave me a copyright strike, and they credited my video of me playing. They credited it to some concert pianist, some guy that's not even alive. I couldn't believe it. So I had to fight them over that, and I got it reversed, but that's a good idea, man.
That's hilarious. No, Nathan Hewitt did this. You're copywriting him. And you're like, I am Nathan Hewitt.
That's exactly. And you know how that works. When they give you the copyright strike, they automatically give it to the person they think it is. Like, I think it just heard the audio. And the problem is there's 1,000 pianists that have played Chopin Opus, 9 number 1 or whatever. And so they just go and find somebody and stick it there. And it's like, great. Now I have to spend 3 or 4 weeks fighting and proving I wrote it. And it's like, look, it's a video.
Yeah, that's annoying, but yeah, that's pretty good. No, but I was thinking about that. You have your Holocaust Humanity stuff. You have your solo stuff, which you're hopefully releasing more of.
I'm going to release a bunch. Yep.
Yeah, I like the consistent slow drain. And then I was thinking, I really enjoyed watching those videos, but it'd be cool to have them in a playlist type format somewhere.
That's awesome. I will look into doing that. I don't know how well the video quality is on all of them, but the audio quality is professionally recorded, all of it. So
yeah, and that's all I'm looking for.
Sweet. I'll get on that for you, man.
Done. All right.
Just for you.
Yeah, just for you.
I'm gonna hang up now.
For just a second, I want to share the screen, and this is just want to make sure this is the right one, right?
That's me.
And then it's.
I love the profile pic.
Yeah.
Just 2 songs on that. I put those 2 up just to literally claim the page is kind of how I did it. And from here on out, they're still in the process of moving this because I have another main account, and they're trying to get that account into my main account right now. And once that's done, the bird is free.
So what's on the other account?
The Holocaust Humanity.
Okay, the one with leaves. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think we've got a couple albums up there, maybe 3 or 4 remixes we've done for people.
Yeah, you've got there's a Holocaust Humanity, the self-titled one.
That's the thing. This is what causes so much trouble. Is that album was the first album that ever hit Spotify that we had back in 2007, and it was submitted as Holocaust Humanity. So when they don't have any band that's claimed that page, it gives the band, the Holocaust Humanity page. Our band is the Holocaust Humanity.
Right. So that's what I had to search for to find that album. It
created 2 bands. And so they've been trying. They finally have gotten it on Spotify where I think it's blended.
Okay. And what is the other album called? One?
It's called One. Yep.
Okay. That's the one that has leaves on it.
Yep. And technically the one that's just self-titled Holocaust, it was supposed to be called 2, but but things got screwed up. So
Wow. Okay.
yeah, I was just going to name albums numerically, just 1, 2, 3. I didn't
Well,
care
I'm
about
getting that from the molecular. But
Yes.
yeah, I think that's from your kind of classical aspect of your roots is, this is opus number 6.
That's exactly.
Okay. I like
That's
it.
exactly it, man. And I do have some ideas for things now. Like I have some neat ideas for names, but I never thought about it much back then, really.
Well, let me ask you if you ever fell into this trap. You probably did the same thing, Mike. A lot of the songs that Bryan and I have, the dumbest stuff ever, because the way the song got named was I'm in Cubase and I'm hitting save, and it's like, you got to type something in. And I'm like, eggs.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
100%. Yes.
Okay. And then later on, well, what are we going to call this? And I'm like, well, it's called eggs. Just call it eggs. And he's like, this song has nothing to do with eggs. I'm like, who gives a shit?
Right. We've got a lot of those too. And then you have Eggs 1, Eggs Final Master, Eggs Final Master for real. Final Master.
For absolutely. Yeah.
It gets fun with the remixes though. You get the eggs over easy remix, and
Right.
the hard boiled egg mix and the hard boiled mix,
Yeah.
the
Right.
scrambled mix.
Yeah.
Good times.
That's the one I did. The scrambled mix. What the heck is this?
Well, just talking about the creativity of releasing albums reminded me of an idea I had back with my band. I mean, we're young and dumb when we think we're going to be rock stars. And one of the things I'm like, oh, well, we're probably going to have like 10 albums, 10 CDs on somebody's shelf. And boy, wouldn't it be cool if when you put out the album, usually it's some kind of artwork that you don't understand or whatever, you're kind of looking, or something that's thought-provoking, and you're like, oh, that's nice artwork. But then the spines of the CDs are always like something else. And I was like, wouldn't it be great if like albums 1 through 10, when you line them up, they make a picture, with the spine. And I remember pitching that to the band, which is, 5 other dudes. And they're like, that's cool, but no.
I think it's a great idea. I was never smart enough to think of that stuff like that.
I thought you were going to say they were on board, but you only did the one album, so the picture is 1/10 done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess technically there's 2 albums, but one of them was never a CD. We released it so many years later that it was like just straight to streaming.
Is it on? It's on Spotify, right?
Yeah.
Wait, remind me of the band name.
It's who knew, but you have to spell it WHUGNU because high school, and I mean, I thought it was a great idea at the time. They're not all gold.
No. I mean, that 90% of mine aren't gold for sure.
Yeah, like you can ask Alexa, never mind, to play that, but you have to spell it out. You gotta say a word, play WHUGNU, and she will, because if you just say who knew, she pulls up some other band I've never heard of.
All right.
Which, at the time, you didn't know the internet was going to be around, or that you could just tell this device in your room to play something.
That's exactly it. I was complaining about the whole 2-band thing on Spotify recently. I was like, I never knew that this was going to be a problem. But now everything is metadata, and so it's like, oh no, this is your band name, and you can't just go change it. It's like, it's not an easy task, So
Yeah, the business side of music it kills my inner child.
Same here. It killed me. That's why I stepped away. It's just, I got tired of that, and like I started doing records for other people, and which is a great thing to do. But when you're done, it's like, you need that downtime. And then it's like other people hear that and they want you to help them with their record. And it just, that and promoting my own band, playing my own shows, writing music for my own shows. It just became too much, man. So.
I'm sorry, I've got a little bit of ADHD and I keep seeing that Emax II behind you.
Sure.
I remember mine came with the typical 2 megabytes of RAM. You could expand it up to 16. I'm curious if you have 16 meg of sample RAM in that thing.
No, it's stock.
It's stock.
I wish.
The RAM can be had. and it's much cheaper.
Yeah, and doesn't that make it the turbo model or something like that? Like they had a turbo.
I have no idea. I will say, then the other thing was, do you have any sort of SCSI hard drives or anything hooked up to it?
Absolutely. There's SCSIs hooked up to it right now.
Cool.
Is it a SCSI zip drive?
It's a 275 meg SCSI drive, made by LaCie back then. I didn't even know the brand existed, but they're popular now. It's actually.
And you got to know things like SCSI termination and all that junk.
Here.
Yeah. Wow, that is big.
275 megs.
Nice.
And I've thrown it down hallways before. It's had liquid spilled on it. It's been through hundreds of gigs and it still works, still boots up fine. I actually used it for my Kurzweil for our gigging. And only in the last 2 years did I reformat it back to the Emax. And so
that's so awesome. That's so awesome. The other thing is that Emax looks gigantic, but it's mostly air. If you've ever had to open it, yeah.
Yep, it's very light, very easy to carry. Just a little metal sheet, on the bottom,
Sheet
and
metal on the bottom.
That's it.
Was that for heat dissipation?
No,
Do we know?
No,
Okay.
it's just sheet metal down there. In fact, I have holes in mine because I didn't have an external SCSI drive, but I did have an internal. And so I drilled holes into it to bolt it to the bottom, and it worked great until it didn't.
Oh, you made it internal.
Yeah.
Wow. I hesitate taking tools and stuff like that back then. Today, I'd have a little more confidence, but still I was like, okay, good for you. I think I swapped out a power cord that was it was a soldered in power cord, and it was broken, and that's why I got the keyboard for cheap. And I was like, no problem, dude. And that was scary.
Oh yeah.
And back in the day, I was a little wary of doing some things like that. But at that point, I had built my own computer, and I was like, well, this is just SCSI. There's nothing. I mean, it's fine. And it was, and it worked. But the SCSI drive I had was not great, and it was on his last leg anyway. And so it worked for a minute, and it was cool for a minute. But then it was, dead, and just diskettes. Throwing those in. Remember those?
Yes.
So I've got, I think there's a story you can tell me, and I'm just going to give you 3 names. Okay.
Okay.
Sara Lee Lucas.
Yeah. He mastered our record. The last.
For those
record.
that don't know, just tell us who that was. And which album was that?
It was the one that you called the self-titled, the one that's red and black.
Got it.
He mastered that album. He was the drummer in Marilyn Manson, and in the heyday of Marilyn Manson, like the Antichrist Superstar and the Portrait of American Family era kind of stuff. And he started a mastering company down in Florida. I think it's called Master Lab. And I'd have to look, but yeah. And watch me be completely wrong here. Say he's the drummer and he was like the bassist. No, he's the drummer. I'm positive. I am going to look so that I don't sound like a fool in case.
No, yeah. I want to know how that all happened.
Yeah.
So is that just like you employed this company to do that, or how did you meet, or what?
Yeah. Well, the way it worked is we got on a label in Dallas called Zoviet Records. Shout out to Tui, if you hear me, Tui. He had a record label called Zoviet, and I don't know how that connection between them existed, but it did. They knew a guy named Trace, I think it was. And Trace is like the engineer assistant or something at Master Lab with Sara Lee Lucas. And somehow they heard some of our songs and said, yeah, we want to master the disc. So I sent it out to them, and there you go.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
it was. And when I listened to it, I was like, man, the production's amazing. It sounds professional. And I really liked it. But it really was like a missing puzzle piece in that time period. And I was, without looking, I'm like, I know when these songs were written. So yeah, kudos for that. That's pretty cool.
Thanks. I recently found the original masters, and It's nothing towards, you know how it is when you do something yourself and you get it exactly the way you want it and you send it off somewhere else. And even if it's a good job, no one's heard the originals. And when I play them back to back, I like the original masters better personally. So I do have those. But I love the record. I mean,
What format do you have them in?
they're in the format I sent them to him in. They're in 2448 WAV files.
What? Oh, they're WAV files. Okay, I didn't know if that was on Ampex tape or DAT
No. Those were at that point. It was just no tape. But I've got all the originals that are untouched by them, and you know, I think they just tried to squeeze a little more loudness. You know how that goes, and you lose dynamics and you lose things. And I can, like, as soon as I got it back, I was just studying it, and that's going to happen with every record. That's happened, you know.
that was all the era of over compressing for radio.
Exactly. And so
Which, yeah, on one hand, I want my stuff to sound like that, but when I heard it like that, I'm like, I'm missing a lot of high dynamics, and all the low is just kind of muddled, and I'm like, what's going on?
Right. That's how I feel now. Like I try to master, I use an LUFS meter, and so I try to master that to about 11 decibels LUFS, which is kind of an accumulated loudness, you could say. And I hand it off like that because all the streaming sites these days, they're gonna, if your song is really loud, they're gonna bring it down to like 11 or 12 LUFS and or bring it up to that. So people say, let me master your music, and I think that, you know, that doesn't really mean anything now.
No.
No.
I mean, it can.
Everybody's volume is going to be approximately the same.
Exactly.
And so if you put it to where it's supposed to be, then that's probably, I mean, in theory, less processing that's going to happen to your stuff. And I remember the Loudness Wars too, and I remember like hearing a bunch of stuff back before there was just this general volume, and I remember thinking, and it was kind of a rookie mistake that we made, but also it was on purpose. We said, we're not sending our stuff off to get mastered. We want it to be dynamic. And so if you can get your hands on the original CD, then it is. It's you got to crank it up in your car if you want to hear everything, but the loud stuff is loud and the quiet stuff is quiet. And I mean, we did use compressors and equalizers, but not over the whole thing. Basically, it was practically an unmastered, it was a mix.
Sure.
Is what it is. But we had honed that mix to be exactly what we wanted. And to this day, I like it a lot. Now, the stuff that we put on Spotify, we decided, we should probably make some things, you know, because we'd gotten comments from some of our friends. But, you know, that's kind of a live and learn thing. Now, the second album, yeah, it's all, you know, it sounds like everybody else's stuff as far as loudness. But that first one, if you can find the CD, it's kind of special.
I hear you. And yeah, it's like some people prefer that. I think I kind of prefer as well. And I don't mind cranking stuff up a little louder, and like you said, there is a healthy blend between the two. There's definitely compression going over even my original masters, but you know, I say masters, we're not even dealing with tape anymore, but you know, it's crazy though. It's like you have to find that nice medium between the two because I feel like it's too much. My ears get fatigued. And
100%.
Yeah. And you know, it's like you hear a song and there's like an acoustic guitar that's as loud as the electric guitar, which is as loud as the drums, and it's like, this doesn't even make sense to me. Like, where is the, you know, it's got to be a relief for a moment. And
yeah,
no, that's cool. Bryan and I, we got kind of frustrated in the regard of mastering. I mean, you have a dictionary, you're like, okay, what does that mean? What does it actually mean? And there was, you know, here, buy my online book course for $1,200 on mastering. And I'm like, no, you know, this and that. So it was troublesome in a educational way where we would really just listen to things, a lot of stuff that we liked, and try to make the aspects of that, really let your ear focus on the bass or this and that. And like I was telling Mike earlier, we had some Tannoy monitors, but then we'd put out a song and we'd always do a car test.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And you're like, oh man, the hi-hats are killing me and this is too bad. And and we go make changes and basically listen to it on like 5 different systems, from almost like a crappy clock radio to really good car stereo to a home stereo with large infinity speakers and blah, blah, blah. But when we were getting into the era of software, we would, I had Wavelab, which was a Steinberg product.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what we would burn CDs in, because you could blend tracks and do all this cool stuff. And you could put CD markers in there. So our main reason for doing that was we were having continuous albums with CD markers instead of this audio gap.
Same here, man. Same here.
Okay. But there was a plugin there, and I don't remember the name of it, but it was a mastering plugin, and it had the coolest thing where you could load up either a WAV file or put a CD in of anything, and it would pull the mastering settings. It had like 16 channels or something, and it would be like, here's the mastering curve from that track for the 5 seconds that you said sample. And then it would apply it to your thing. Right. And you could immediately hear the difference, toggle it on and off, bypass, or adjust it. And that's how we ended up doing it. But in the end, I still don't know what we were doing.
Right.
But it did sound more, that sounds like we handed it to somebody that they knew what they were doing, and this now sounds professional.
Sure.
I remember that. It was an equalization plugin. And it would look at the EQ curve of however long you play that song, your source song, and then it would look at the one that you played, your personal song, and it would apply the difference. And yeah, sometimes it worked great, and sometimes it was like, oh my God, what it just had done?
Right.
That's wrong.
It worked great if your song sounded similar to this song. Mm-hmm. But if you put a country CD in and did that, and then put it to an EDM track, or vice versa. But if it was like, hey, I'm doing a trance album and I pulled this Paul Oakenfold thing and I put it over here. Yeah, it was 90% of the way there, and tweak it. It was a good head start. And I forget the name of it. It had master in the title.
Yeah, it was some sort of filter.
Came with a package, and I loved that thing. But I wish I would have understood it.
Yeah, right. I think we're talking about the same one. It was kind of red, and there was like a white line.
It was a red box, and it would
line.
do a curve, and it had like 16 sliders underneath, and you could save it. That's this. And then you could apply it, and I think you could fade the application of it.
I think you're right.
Like only apply this at a 50% opacity,
Yeah.
See, that's genius, because it threw me off when I would, sometimes like you said, you hear your song, it's so drastically different. And it's funny now I think I master more, like I mix down and master more as it would be back then. But back then, when you hit that button and it's like, whoa, and you hear the A-B versus your song, it's like, I didn't know if it was good or bad personally, I couldn't tell.
But it's a lot different for us sequencing stuff, because I think we do more of that as we build the song now.
As we're working, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not like I recorded the guitar part, and then I recorded the drums, and I recorded the bass, and I recorded the vocals, and I recorded the rhythm guitar, and now I'm sitting there in a mixing and mastering session.
Right.
As we're building, if the snare's too loud, I turn it down.
Exactly. See, we were already engineering the record as we built it. Exactly. 100%. And then later on, someone stole that idea from Wavelab. Do you remember? It was called Harbal. It was a plugin. It was a program called Har-Bal, and you would do the same concept. You take a song you consider perfectly mastered, pop it in there. It scans the profile. It gets the profile, and then it applies it to your song.
Well, I've never heard of that. Wow.
Me neither.
Yeah. They're probably still selling it. I don't know, but and I got mixed. Harbal.
Harbal. Okay.
Harbal. Yep.
It's like harmonic balance, or who knows.
That's exactly what it was.
Okay.
But
that's cool. I'll have to check that out.
Back to the Wavelab. Whenever you're making your CD, I remember burning my first audio CD and being like, oh, why? Where's this quiet coming from? Why is that there? With whatever CD burning program came with whatever your CD burner had.
Nero.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. whatever it was. And then they're like, yeah, Wavelab does Redbook,
Right.
whatever that was. And we're like, I think that's what I need.
Yep.
And then you
Redbook audio, and you could overburn. We had CDs that were 7404.
Yep.
Just because we could burn it, so we're gonna extend this out to that.
That, and then like it was Redbook with no pause. I got CD Architect by Sonic Foundry for the same reason. And
Yeah,
it came
it
with the
could do it.
burner. Yep. And you could they call it butt splicing, I guess, these days, but you could just put 2 tracks or blend them, and it would almost like, okay, it's just, you just put a region and that's track 2 where it starts. And that was another, yeah.
Sonic Foundry, that was like an extension or part of SoundForge or something, right?
Right. Oh, well, Sonic Foundry, they made SoundForge, they made
That's right.
CD
That's what it
Architect,
was.
and then they got bought out by Sony,
Yeah.
and then
That went into all their Vegas junk.
yep.
Or
Now
whatever.
there's some other company called Magix or Emagics or I don't know. But
I had some of that because
SoundForge
it came
was
with. It came with Avid,
Oh, yeah.
a crappy version of SoundForge, but they had a mastering tool and the CD burning stuff, which was really good actually. It was I used it for DVD burning for video stuff, but it came with Avid back in the day for a little bit,
wow.
along with Sorensen to encode your videos.
Yep. I remember Sorensen.
SoundForge had this thing buried deep into it, especially for guys with keyboards, MIDI sampling keyboards.
Absolutely.
If you had the stuff, you could
SCSI,
actually
baby.
you could do SCSI, but there was also a way to dump a sample through
Over MIDI.
MIDI.
Yeah, over
And
MIDI.
it took forever, but
Yeah.
it worked.
It sure did. I remember exactly. I knew where you were going with that, man.
Yeah.
It had MIDI and SCSI, so you're great if you had SCSI, but it could
Yeah.
get the job done after 6 hours.
That's amazing. That's some guy going, look, it's a communication system. It doesn't have to know what it's communicating. As long as the other
100%.
side is sending it and the other side's receiving it, we'll put it back together. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Right.
and so you could go in and out of SoundForge. So if you had and so I was never very good at editing stuff on the Emax II. You could do things, but like I wanted to do other things, and so I would dump it into, send it to dump into SoundForge, go about my day, come back later that night, and then have the sample in there that I could mess up.
Yep. Blow it away in 1 second, have to start all over.
Oh yeah.
I remember the Emax, transform multi, there was that synthesis,
Oh yeah.
and you would hit go, and it was like, this may take a while. It tells you this may take
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Don't get a power spike because it'll take a while again.
The
Right.
the Ensoniq ASR10 manual, because it had sampler, but it only had, I think, like 8 megs on board RAM, but it could do time compression expansion and stuff. In reading the manual, when you get to some function like that, it would say in the manual, this is a good time to get a frothy beverage.
Yes.
100%.
Because, I mean, it's going to blink and say, like, processing. And you're going to go, I think this thing's frozen. Let me turn it off. And it's like, no, it's good. It just wait. And I remember doing time compression expansion on a, 16 beat drum loop. And it took like 8 hours.
Right.
And I was like, oh, well, we're going to go to the movies. And we came back and it's still blinking.
right.
And we're like, what the hell? And, Bryan was like, why are you doing this? I'm like, just wait.
It's gonna be the
Right.
best.
And those sounds from that era and that gear and a couple other pieces of gear did that time compression and expansion stuff, and it was cool. It was like very unique.
It was now it's like a right click. Zzz, okay.
Yep. Piece of cake.
Can do it real time.
Very cool. Very cool. So you're going to release this, did you say you had 194? What was the
100
number?
I counted 191. My mom asked for a folder of my music for Christmas. That's how I know. So I gathered up a folder and I sent it to her, and she said, Nath, there's 190 songs in here. And it's like, oh my gosh. Again, they're not all the best, but I've probably got another 40 I could do for Holocaust Humanity, which I plan on. And I've got new stuff I'm always writing. And then I've got loads of the ambient stuff, kind of like that molecular track. Some other projects. I've got a project called Dot and a project called Particle Fundamentalist, but that's just weird stuff. But I'm going to put it all out. So
I'm trying to get Bryan do that too. And Brian and I had our little side projects where it was more like, I need to get this out of my head, but it's not
Right.
for us. It
Right.
doesn't match us. And I started putting some stuff out, and he had one called Androgenus Android, which is awesome. I love it.
I think I remember
weird
that.
songs.
I think I remember that actually.
Well, I'm going to, if he doesn't have the original stuff, I have, WAV files. But if he doesn't want to do it, I want to put it on Spotify or whatever. Just get it out there.
Should.
But I'm asking and encouraging. Is it all gonna be released under the Nathan Hewitt thing where Molecular is?
It'll be either under Nathan Hewitt, it'll be under the Holocaust Humanity, or those two other projects, which I can give you the links whenever they happen. They have no releases tied to them at all. So,
well, I like ambient ethereal stuff. When I post all my astrophotography things, little reels, they're 8 to 15 seconds.
sure.
I like picking out music like that, but if you have stuff out
Sure.
there, I'm gonna, with your permission, rip it off and credit you.
Oh, of course. And I think all of this stuff I'm getting ready to release has like YouTube content IDs and Instagram IDs, so you should be able to find a lot of that music in there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome.
So I don't even have to like get it separately and put it in to
I don't think so. My wife told me that she found one of my songs on Instagram, put it in a post, so I was really shocked to hear that. So
Very cool. So yeah, and don't forget about the classical stuff.
I won't, man. I really appreciate you suggesting that. I'm glad people like that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the first time I've kind of talked to you face to face, so to speak.
We went
In a
to
while.
lunch. Yeah, we went to lunch one day. You took me out to
that was 10 years ago.
lunch. Wow.
Because
That's
I was
crazy.
the girl I was dating. I remember when that was.
Yep.
But are you still up near Mainer or Hutto or?
I'm right there, same place. Yep.
Okay. Just for your knowledge, Mike is on the east side. He's like
Okay.
Yeah. We're off a 969 and like just past 183, but I drive
Oh, wow.
to Hutto all the time because that's the closest taco casa that exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm right out here on 973 and 290. I'm in
Okay.
Maynard. I'm between Maynard and Pflugerville.
Oh, so
So-
we're darn close.
We're close. We're
Yeah.
close. You're closer than Hutto.
Yeah. Yeah, we should hang out.
one of the top 2 Texas high school mascots is the Hutto Hippos.
That's right.
Number one is New Braunfels.
Really?
What is
They're-
theirs?
They're the unicorns.
Of course they are. That's nice.
I'm not kidding, because Prince Solms, who the people named New Braunfels after the prince in Germany at the time, his crest, I think, has a unicorn on it.
Wow.
Pretty great.
So, anyways, I'm on Instagram on my phone right now, and I just acted like I'm posting a reel, and I typed in Nathan Hewitt. Is Carbon Copy you?
No.
Okay,
That
so
might
that's
not
the
be
other
there yet.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. That release is just literally came out yesterday, came out on Friday. So it's going to take time to trickle, I guess, to that one.
Is that Molecular?
Yeah.
Oh, let me just type in Nathan Hewitt Molecular. Nope. All right, I'll keep checking.
Yeah. And if it's not there, I'll fix it because it's got a content ID for it. Like the Holocaust Humanity you should find as well. So
Excellent.
So, can I ask just one more little line of questioning, mainly because I'm curious.
oh yeah.
And I'll preface it with, when I first got into it, into recording, beyond just sequencing, but just like actually recording. It was before I had access to anything, and so the hottest thing out there was a 4-track version of Pro Tools that nobody could afford, and it was like one setup at Brook Mays in Irving, and you could drool over it, but they never turn it on for you unless you look like you had money. And so I remember thinking, okay, Pro Tools is untouchable. I'll never be able to afford it. And so then Cubase came along, and I started recording hard drive, and ADATs and stuff like that. But I always like, oh man, Pro Tools, that's what everybody uses in serious studios. So
Oh yeah. I did that as well.
I remember finally getting my hands on Pro Tools, actually becoming a Pro Tools certified instructor at some point, and being like, well, okay, this is kind of cool, but man, Cubase does so many cooler things, and New Window and other programs can get the job done. So today, now that you have all that experience in the past, like, how do you feel about certain DAWs? What is the one that you feel comfortable with today?
Same as you, Cubase. I use a lot of Logic, use a lot of Cubase.
Are you on version 12?
Of Cubase? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I remember Pro Tools and the same thing. By the time, I think just our ages, all of us are relatively the same age. So I think by the time we were getting to that. Okay, me too. Me too. Just turned 30.
Yeah.
But it was like, Pro Tools was really great in the late 80s, right? Because everything was, like all of our systems are host processor based, whereas Pro Tools had the TDM and you could get the farm cards and the 888s. And so all of that offloading would help you track a huge band, but by the time we hit it, it's like computers were getting strong enough on their own and powerful enough on their own. You didn't really need, it would still be great. And I did that as well. I started piecing together pieces of Pro Tools systems, 888s and farm cards and different things. And it was like, I don't need to do this. I had the money back then I could have blown it, but I had the money to buy a full on Pro Tools system just due to unfortunate stuff. But I thought about it and was like, no, kind of like you. I started playing with Cubase, and then the plugin architecture started coming out. It's like, this is crazy. That's all I need.
Yeah.
And I knew that computers would reach a level where, at the time, it was like you could easily max out your computer with those plugins. But that was when Pro Tools started, slipping, I think, in terms of, I don't think anybody even cares these days, other than the namesake of it.
Yeah, if you're if you're doing post-house work like for movies, Pro Tools is kind of almost
the standard.
Almost have to. But there's other things out there that are so cool. Like, so the Fairlight thing kills me because that was the other thing, is everybody wanted a Fairlight keyboard, right? Well. So you fast forward so many years, they had multi-track and all that, and now Fairlight is free, and it's insane because I've used it alongside Pro Tools, and I'm like, why is this free? This is insane that it's free, and so if any
Blackmagic.
Yeah, like the Grant Petty, the CEO of Blackmagic, who I don't know if you do any video work at all, but man, that company is the coolest, and I swear if they ever went public, I would 100% invest, because they're just awesome. They do the coolest stuff, because all the stuff that we went through in the audio world, I also went through in the video world. It was like, you thought Pro Tools was untouchable when we were first starting out. Try do any sort of video processing, right? Or any sort of film work. Like, forget it. Now, you're never getting an Avid,
Right.
And
anything other but Avid. Yeah.
Those $1 million, $2 million, $10 million rooms that you could never get into, that they're just doing cocaine in there. And then it's like, this guy was like, he couldn't get in those rooms either, so he just built this company. He was like, well, I'm just going to make video affordable for everybody. And he did. And I just can't say enough awesome stuff about him. But this is not about him. That's just my little...
Well, but tell him how Fairlight's involved in that.
So yeah, they just bought Fairlight, and they decided, okay, here we're giving away a free editing program, which is, in my opinion, better than Avid in a lot of ways. But basically, let me back up a little bit. So you would do something in Avid, and then it's ready to release for a movie, but beyond audio mixing, you have to do a thing called color. And so they actually color time everything, and in order to do that, you would use a thing called DaVinci Resolve.
I remember
and,
Resolve.
and it was $300,000. Nobody could afford it. Blackmagic bought Resolve and gave it away. They said, here's our software for free. You just download it. Yeah, it's the Resolve that you were thinking of.
Wow.
And if you want the $300,000 version, we don't sell that. What we do is we sell a $30,000 board that you can control it with, and you can do that. But basically, software is for free. And then later they're like, no, it's actually there's a free version, a $300 version, but the $300 version has a forever license. So you buy it once 10 years ago, you still get the latest $300 version, and it's amazing. And so then they tacked an editing part in there in the program, and basically it's the entire workflow. So you open up the program, and at the bottom you've got media, where you ingest all your media, audio and video, and then you edit the thing together like Avid, but it's not Avid, it's this free software of editing that's just as powerful or more powerful than Avid. And then you color it in the little color tab, and it's like Resolve, and it's everything. And it's not just like they took Resolve and decided, okay, well, here's what Resolve did, and we're never going to develop it. No, they keep developing it, and it's awesome.
That's awesome.
And then they have a little piece in there for special effects, and then they have an audio mixing tab, which is Fairlight. Basically, Fairlight. What you and I know, and you mix everything down to the sample, and you can take out noise, and there's AI plugins, and it's all free, and it's wonderful. And if you want to mix to certain LUFSs, then you just dial it in, and it tells you, and it'll analyze basically Wavelab, but built into Fairlight and into
awesome.
DaVinci Resolve. And then there's a Deliver tab. Oh, did you want to make a DCP, a digital cinema package for releasing to actual movie theaters? Yeah, they do that.
Oh, wow.
And then, oh, you want to release to YouTube? Yeah, they do that. And in fact, anything you can think of, they do it. And it's free or one-time $300. And it's just like this guy grew up in the same time that you and I grew up, and he kept getting the middle finger from all these big companies, like, no, you're not allowed to come into our $10 million video editing booths. And he just was like, yeah, I'll just make my own,
That's awesome.
And he did, and it's great. And
I
love that.
And he understood the world of content creators and how, like, I can sell 300,000 rigs a year, or I can sell $10,300 licenses a year.
Well, and I will preface it a little bit, or I guess I should have said that before, with the catch is it's a little bit like razor blades, right? You give away the razor, but you sell the razor blades. So his razor is the software, but it only works with his hardware.
Oh.
And so in some sense, right? Like his hardware, his video hardware. Now the audio hardware, it works. If your audio is USB and it shows up on the system, it works fine. You can have Dante, like we're doing Dante now, and you got 64 inputs and 64 outputs. They show up and they're just fine.
That's perfect though, because that still gives him an avenue to make money on the high end.
That's right.
And it opens the doors to all of us, plebes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I can't say enough good things about them. And I wish they were sponsoring us. Blackmagic. Yeah. So if you go to blackmagicdesign.com, that is their website. And so if you want to edit your own videos and stuff, it's a slight learning curve, but YouTube's full of how to do it. And what do you think? I introduced it to you, Mike. What did you think?
Yeah, and I'm coming from an Avid shop where I was actually using Media Composer, and then I don't think it was difficult. I did cheat a little bit where I mapped the key. I had a certain mapping of keys in Avid that was my custom set, and I did that in Resolve without kind of learning their stuff because I was trying to do something fast. But anytime I've had a question, I go to YouTube, and there's a 1 minute 15-second video on that specific question. It's not like, oh, watch this 45-minute tutorial and it may be answered in there. No,
Right.
I mean, it was like, how do you do this? And that's all you got to do. And I'm going, okay. And for some of the more advanced color correction and stuff like that, it's still a little sticky to me, but I don't think it's unlearnable. It's really powerful and it's amazing. And I'm sitting there going, this is free. The things that are not unlocked, which I guess is the $300 version, are like if you go into some of the video or audio effects, the basic stuff is there. But if you want some a little more advanced controlling things, that's what it'll just say, hey, are you ready to buy this? And you're like, no, or yes, but I'm getting close.
Yeah. And so some of the things that are annoying like that, like one of the main things I think they should unlock, because everybody has old VHS. VHS has interlaced video, and the internet doesn't do interlaced video in a pretty way.
No.
And so you need to de-interlace it in a certain way, and Blackmagic bought up a company that does that so beautifully, and they just implemented it into their software.
Cool.
And it's just there, but it's in their $300 version. So, you can put in interlaced video, but if you want it to look really good,
Sure.
then you spend $300 one time. And I didn't mean for this to come off as a hey, let's but I selling Blackmagic, but I do drink their Kool-Aid, and man,
Hey, that's
it's good.
awesome. That's awesome. Rep your brand. I respect that for sure.
Yeah,
That's cool.
The whole video creator market got unbelievably affordable,
Right.
and there's just a few underdogs who are not underdogs anymore that they're killing it. They're killing
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So sorry. We should probably wrap this up. What last kind of little thing do you want to talk about, Mike, or you, Chaz? Whatever.
Whatever.
Chaz, whatever.
Whatever you guys.
I agree with you. I kind of went through the main questions I had. I'm looking forward to hearing more of your stuff. We'll definitely put links to the Nathan Hewitt for the molecular page and the Holocaust Humanity on this.
Awesome. Thank you.
So no problem. But no, I'm good. It's really I need to be in the same room with you sooner than later, especially since
Same.
instead of 3 hours away, I'm an hour away.
Right. And hey, we're all close. So that definitely, I didn't realize that he was right down the road as well. So
Yeah, all these Bedford boys that moved down south. So
hey, we're taking over.
Well, Austin turned out to be pretty cool, so I liked staying here.
It's because it's because we're here, but
yeah,
That's exactly why.
it's cool now.
right, right now. Wasn't cool then, but
Right.
No, that's great. All right, cool. So if you got anything for us?
just that it was a pleasure. I had fun. It was cool. I was kind of
Okay.
nervous, but I had a good time. It was great.
Yeah, that's what it
Really
is.
appreciate
And
it.
I may
you.
drag you back on one time. We'll get Bryan on here.
Anytime. You guys, this was my first Zoom call ever. Like I didn't do it through
Really?
COVID, didn't do it. And I set everything up like last night. And it worked.
Oh, dude, when I emailed you, I was like, hey, do you have Zoom, this and that, and a microphone? You're like, yeah, I'm covered. And I was like, oh, he's done this several times.
Nope. This is it. But I, it's my element. So I'm good.
No, that's awesome. Oh, I didn't even realize. Okay.
Glad it
well,
I had a
cool,
blast, man. Thank you guys.
Good to see you. We'll
You
talk
too.
to you later.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Mike's on mics, yeah.